We got to keep working, got to keep reaching. We do. We got to keep pushing on. Yep, indeed we do. Huh. Pause this here celestial moment of alignment and attunement with each other. Greetings, fellow Earth people and DJs in the house. I'm Verdi Arbusto. This is the Schumann Resonance Harmonics channel on YouTube and Facebook. I'm in my Captain DJ attire, being a DJ for the night. That's an Aronmix. Thank you, Aaron, for providing the mix. That's actually from 8/8/2020, 2020. And I'm pretty sure I have put that in one of the videos somewhere. But we're tonight. It's a little different because we are auditioning it for the Aronmix Marathon, and so far it's meeting up with the criteria of what we're looking for. And this is the birthday. This is my birthday video. I'm working on another one that I'm going to be recording right after this. Okay. So I'm building up with this one to do the actual one that I wrote on my birthday. I've been hibernating since the 29th, actually. So this is my first video since my birthday. And I'm also celebrating Pam's birthday. We're doing this together. Pam and I are kind of this year celebrating a birthday. And there's a lot that's going to be planned for the next few weeks coming up. You know, I'm still working on the Aronmix Marathon birthday bonanza blowout bash with a couple friends of mine. And this gives me the opportunity to ask you to please donate toward this cause. I'm planning for my my birthday, Pam and I's birthday. You know, we're doing something together that involves an Aronmix and music and fun things. So the links to the PayPal and the GoFundMe will be in the links. Okay, so if you're new here, welcome. I am Verdi Arbusto. This is the Schumann Resonance Harmonics channel on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for being here. If you're new, welcome. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you would be so kind, please hit the notification bell and select all. If you don't select all notifications, you will get none. It's the way YouTube does its algorithm. And so thank you for playing along with that game so that you can get the notifications from this channel. It's let's see, it is what's today? Monday. It's Monday the 4th of October, and I'm actually doing this on the 4th. I haven't done one of these in a little while. I like doing the observations. I've been doing these for about a year, roughly the length of the time that I've been doing my channel, because they're supposed to be short, relatively sweet. The observations are just, you know, what I'm looking at when I look at the chart and the things that I'm saying. And there's usually a lot more to it, but I want to focus in on a few areas as I do the observations. And this is, again, this is me looking at it from the perspective of what I'm looking at from this, just, you know, physically, technically, and not what its, you know, great societal, you know, dimension or any ascension or anything like that is. You know, it's not, I don't look at the Schumann resonance chart that way. I don't suggest other people do. I highly suggest to look at the Schumann resonance chart as a as an illustration of how to read Schumann resonances, and not as an indication of what the ascension scale or, you know, the ascension world is doing. And I put this in here as a sort of disclaimer that the information from Tomsk is based on that from an educational institution, and it shouldn't be viewed as anything other than an illustration of how to read the Schumann resonances. Okay, I said that before, and I'm repeating that now for those who are new, in case you haven't heard me saying that. And along that line, just as a side note, I have been more and more, as I do these videos, trying to gear them toward the newcomers and the people who haven't been around for a long time, who don't know the vocabulary, who might not have heard any of my other videos. I think it's important for them to get kind of caught up on things as immediately as they can, because time is running short. And chances are, if you're a newcomer coming here now at this time, I believe that, it's my belief, but that you realize the time is running short and that you need to get caught up on things quickly. I've read that, I'm all over the place. So I've read that in Facebook. I've read that in other places, that people have the sense of, I don't want to say desperation, but a sense of urgency. I think that's what I'm looking for. Sense of urgency, deep urgency to want to know as quickly as possible, to level up, I guess you could say, that comes with having been around for a while. And I don't know a better way to put it, but I think that really accurately describes how a lot of people are coming into this at this point in the game, this point in the narrative, with a sense of urgency, deep urgency of wanting to know everything. So there's a part of my brain that's always, or frequently, regularly, that is engaged with that for the newcomers, to keep things basic, keep things simple when I'm explaining things. I've been working with the vocabulary. I've made posts on my community, just all over the place, on my web page. Go to my website and you'll see a lot of this stuff, the background information that you'll need. It's all there. It's all there. It's all there. And especially there's a post on the vocabulary of a lot of the words, and that's a work in progress, but a lot of the words are defined. There's still a few that I'm sort of working on, but there's a lot there to wrap your head around. I realize this is very technical, and the only way for you really truly to get involved in this is to understand the vocabulary, to understand the vernacular, to work within the lexicon. The commonality of a lexicon is a subset of a vocabulary that deals with specific technical, in many cases, technical or specific language around a group, a common group, or a common understanding, a common experience. Technical language is of this sort. You might call it jargon. Jargon is very, very technical language that you have to spend a lot of time researching and learning and looking into. And so I don't want this to be jargon in lieu of the vocabulary, right? How do I say this? The spiritual principle to this is we don't want to get lost in the forest for the trees. I think anyone who has been following along with this long enough knows, and even if you are new here, you do know that, you are likely to know that there is a kind of a, I don't want to say a wall, but there's a definite hill involved in the vocabulary of learning the words and what they mean and how they're applicable, not just to the charts, but to you. Like amplitude, what does that mean? That's a great word. All right. So, or frequency. And that brings us up to part of the subject of today is, I didn't put it in the title, but I'm discussing different types of frequencies, what that means and all of that. So that's generally where I'm at, the nuts and bolts of what we're going to talk about today. I should probably get organized here, shouldn't I? Okay, all right. I'm going to do something a little different this video. I'm playing in the background the Aronmix. And this is, the title is Aronmix 2. It's from 8/8/2020, the Lionsgate of this past year. And so I'm going to let it play until the 2:20 mix where it's supposed to. And then that's where I'm going to let it play. So, one of the things that I want to do is talk about some technical stuff that's in addition to Schumann resonances. And one of those things is the OBS, the capture system here, and other computer related stuff. I did a video on the touch screens and keeping those clean and how that's important. And so as I do the premieres, there's also other technical questions that people ask me, and I like addressing those. I think that is also a gift to the people, not just explaining the Schumann resonances, but also other technical stuff that people don't know because they haven't been involved nearly in this stuff as long as I have. I've said this, I have 40 plus years in audio video technical stuff, and I really want to kind of offer as a present, as a birthday present, as a thank you to my people, other technical information. All right, so we're at that mark for Bradley.
Party people jump. Do we properly?
So I'm going to shut up.
Do we properly? Do we properly? Party people jump. Do we properly? Party people jump. A little higher. Do we properly? Do we party properly? If you're feeling that house music beat, feel it properly. People of the world, do it properly. Wherever you are, you're a superstar. House music is the thing that brings us together as one. Do we properly? Do we Music is the thing that brings us together as one. So together, we're gonna do this thing properly. Let's have some fun. Party people, jump, 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 jump. Do it properly. Let's have some fun. Do it. Do it properly. If you're feeling the beat over there, do it. Put your hands up in the air. Do it properly.
Check this out.
There's so many ways to do it. So many ways to see.
Alright.
But the only way to do it is to do it properly.
Talk to the nation. I wanna be president. Talk to the nation.
Do it.
I wanna be president.
I said do it.
I wanna be president.
Do it properly.
I wanna be president.
Oh, do it.
I wanna be president.
I said do it.
Do it properly.
Oh, do it.
Do it properly.
I said do
I promise to deliver you even more, baby.
Properly.
Longer hours on the dance floor. Believe as we believe. If you vote for me,
Properly.
Properly. What can you say? What can I guys say? We're gonna let this drift off in the back. Hopefully it won't be too distracting. Alright. So where we're at with this is I think I had said, this is a personal note. All right, it's my birthday time. I think I had said that at one point I want to be a DJ. You know, growing up, my two loves have always been automobiles, cars, trucks. You know, things. You know, bicycles, mode of transportation, and radio and television. I was around in the early days of radio. Helping my, you know, not on radio, but, you know, helping my grandfather replace the tubes in a radio and a television. I've always had a fascination for electronics and how, you know, TV and broadcast and all that works. I've always been very curious, so that's what allows me to have a you know, a natural inclination for doing this. And so it's largely this love I have for that allows me to do this type of in-depth field work. I think it's kind of a fair word to say field work is, you know, out there, practically. We look at this with rubber meets the road type of attitude. And so having this kind of hands-on field approach to doing this, it's it is because I want to share this great love that I have for you with you folks. So doing this with the OBS and doing the having the studio at home allows me to be the DJ that I couldn't be um, either in college or in the professional. And I wouldn't want to be a professional DJ. At this point, I'm like, I couldn't do that. And I couldn't really do the type out in the club. I think that's fun. I'm fascinated by that, but it's like, oh, that's an art form beyond me. Um, and so doing this type of work also lets me, when I went to college, I realized I was a writer, and I love writing. And quite honestly, I I would rather be a writer and have someone else narrate my work than me be up there on stage and being the one with the spotlights on me, to tell you the truth. But no one else can tell this my story, and no one else can tell the narrative of what's happening better than me. No one knows the material better than I do. This is what my guides assure me. And so I have to be observant to that, and I have to be out here doing this because people need to know the truth from me as the technician, who I don't have a sales pitch in any of this. I just explain it for the love of what it is. And I have my donations been out there because I need to. I need to have donations out there, but I don't have a sales pitch. Eventually, I'd like to have, a line of clothing relative to human resonances and fun things that I've said, little sayings I have relative to the human resonances. Um, but I can't market the human resonances themselves because they're free. They're not here for that. Um, and my agreement early on in this was the whatever is related to the Schumann resonances, the basics, even the advanced stuff related to the Schumann resonances, I'll give that up for free. But the more advanced stuff, the associated atmospheric electromagnetics, that's not that, say the electrics related to volcanoes, seismic activity related to other stuff, related to CERN, the LHC, related to unshielded domestic electronics. That's all different. That's all different. It's significantly different. And it's not, that is not Schumann resonances. And there is a clear distinction in many cases between the Schumann and the other associated atmospheric electromagnetics, so much so that I don't have to put an arbitrary break in there. It is of itself significantly different in what it is and how they measure it, that I know exactly what it is, that, where the parameters of it is. So, doing this little, as I'm not a leader. I'm the tech. I'm a lead technician. That's what I am. I'm not even an engineer. I realize that. The difference between the engineer and the technician is the engineer knows the limitations of the material itself. The engineer has run a lot of tests, or the engineering department has run a lot of tests, and they know the tensile strength of things. Say, for example, they know the limitations of the hardware and the machinery, and they give you the parameters in mathematical terms of in the theoretical sense of what the limitations are, the constraints of everything are. There's more to it. The engineers are the ones that figure out the mathematics of it, and they are able to give you the all of the technical documentation and constraints and the test results and all of this. That's what engineers do. The technician is the person who's out there in the field, out there in real life, who takes the diagrams, who take the technical information and apply it into a real life situation. How to read the technical schematics, how to read the blueprints, how to read the data provided by the engineering team. That's what the technician does. So that's what my part in this is. So I'm happy to explain the technical side of how this works for the love of the fact that's what I do. And I would love to share that with people because, well, quite honestly, otherwise it's lonely having no family. My friends are all gone um, from a very rough living, wreckage of the past, they call that. So because my family and friends they're gone, like this being able to share this, the technical aspects of this is what keeps me getting up in the morning. You know, um, locally speaking, I have a nice little social life with the bicycle community here. I bicycle, I fix bicycles. Like the coffee shop down the street. There's a nice little, place to sit. I chit chat with people. But what really motivates me, or personally, is doing this stuff, connecting with people on this very highly technical stuff that people want to or claim to want to know at any rate. So it's part of my mission, part of my goal here is to bring that information to people on a technical level, on an everyday type of technical level, so that people can understand it. Okay, so this is sort of my introduction here, I guess. It's my birthday. It's still my birthday. I'm still celebrating my birthday. Um, I haven't celebrated a birthday in years. And so this is kind of a birthday present to myself, doing the Aronmix, but it's also to you because I want to give you, as I said before, I believe I said, may not have said in this one, I'm going to say in this one, but I want to provide use my technical experience in the 40 plus years in practical ways for you all, for you folks, my viewers, my subs, in ways that there might not have been someone else who can give you that type of thing. Because I've got a lot of experience on a lot of different type of technologies, software, hardware, you name it, a lot of stuff. And so it's fun to break out into some other areas for people, so that it's worth you giving me some donations for the extra stuff beyond the Schumer resonances to help me with my birthday, to be with the ones I love. If I'm not rambling on and I'm repeating myself too much, thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to ramble on and rant on and say what I have to. You all are wonderful, and not just the 10 of you. Verde is terrific 10, but all of you who are here. Appreciate it very much. Okay, so I got a little lost and sidetracked, but I think I had said or was planning to say that doing this channel allows me to be Mr. DJ and lead my army of 1,000, manic DJs into the gates of heaven. But it also allows me to express my writing. I have a lot of it. To be here in the spotlight. It allows me to kind of be a DJ, to let Aaron have his space of what he doesn't have otherwise, his international audience of what he should have. That's really important to me and to him as well. He doesn't have nearly an idea of how many people ask about him, and I tell him, I tell him, but he doesn't know, he doesn't see it. So when I get a chance, I'm going to rope him in and he can talk with you guys. I'll do a live stream or something, video, something of him. This also allows me to announce to people the technical skills. And in OBS I have a pretty competent program at this point using that, good quality material, even if I'm stumbling over the words or whatever. It's a good quality picture based even just with the native software that comes with the hardware and just a little $2, three, what is two, I think it was $3.99 Savers webcam that I got the software, downloaded it, it all works great, wonderfully. Um, and so this is kind of a broadcast studio setting that I would never have had professionally, would never have been able to do. I would not ever have been able to write my own material and have my own show, uh, even as successfully as this on a college radio. Uh, I'm pretty sure, college radio. I love college radio, but it's not what this does, and I have the visual aids and everything that go with this, and um, maybe I do have a face that's meant for, radio, terrestrial radio, and not for, broadcast in video form, as my dad would say, but, whatever. I don't care. I think I have a great for video blogging face in my view, mug. And as such, I have had a lot of fun and I've had a lot of uh, good feedback and comments and just a great time doing this. And I really appreciate those of you who come here and talk and chat. And we do the live chat. I've got to meet new people, and it's just been wonderful, fabulous. I just I I can't thank you enough for being here. You just made this wonderful and amazing experience. Uh, okay, so I think I've kind of explained that. I have I kind of get sidetracked. I pause and I restart the video. And I know I don't always kind of follow a straight narrative. Sometimes it's a crooked path I take, and hopefully it's not uncomfortable for you that I'm taking you down dead ends that I haven't kind of re-followed back to the main path of the narrative. Uh, and so I appreciate you being here. Thank you. There's a lot of warmth from my heart that goes out to you for being here and helping me and supporting me. And being like, yay, we love the music. Because I'm here doing this. I'm doing videos I want to do. I'm here because, like I said, I love to do this. I'm doing videos I want to do on a material that I love, and it's very dense and just there's a lot of hardcore science and technical stuff that needs to get addressed, and so I use the music as a kind of a buffer between the hardcore technical stuff and maybe different sections. And so that's I I had I had for a little while I had stopped putting music in because I thought people didn't want to hear the music and they just wanted the material. But I find that I have a lot of people that want to hear the music. It's good music. I don't play the same thing over and over. And this is music again that Aaron has a service. He pays for the rights to the gate. He's part of the service. He pays for the rights to the music, and he makes mixes and he gives them, and he doesn't have really anywhere else to play them. So he makes these mixes to be played in a public setting, and he's not played them out anywhere, like except a few things he's done and in his car. So Aaron has played a whole bunch of Aaron mixes in his car when he's come over here to visit, our mutual friend down here. When he's doing local, events, our friend Chris's party, like he brings his boombox out with his rollerblades, and that's where he's done performances. So I I need to play to do public performance of Aronmixes. I have no choice. So I can't do these videos without playing mixes of otherwise world. I couldn't do other music and not have copyright issues with it. I couldn't play nearly as much music without doing right without having copyright issues. And that's why I do so much Aaron music, because he's paid the dues. He is legally, legitimately entitled to play the music, and I'm playing, public airing his Aaron's mixes. And so I have other DJ friends. My friend DJ Jake, he's just learned how to record his sessions, and so hopefully there's some of his stuff coming up. But it's brand new. I showed him how to, how the settings work, and so he's been doing his live stuff for years, and he hasn't been able to record on Virtual DJ once. So last week I showed him how to do the settings to pick the source in Virtual DJ. Didn't take me any time at all. We figured it out, 10 minutes. And so now he can record in Virtual DJ, which astonished him. And I'm like, oh, honey, you got years of material. You just gone with the wind, but whatever. Anyway, so now he does. Anyway, so on that cheery note, onward and upward. So I have a lot of Aronmix's stuff that years worth of mixes that haven't really been played anywhere. Oh, except his parts, like I said. So, all right. And so, I think that kind of addresses, I've said this before, periodically I say this, for the newcomers, it's important to kind of mention, the music. I have a lot of, wages. I have a lot of, content creators on my channel who are interested in that type of stuff as well. And it's important for us who are here doing this to mention about the music, the royalties and copyright claims, and all of this kind of technical stuff that may be a little boring to other people who aren't content content providers on YouTube. But it's a community, and so I apologize to those of you who are maybe a little bored on this topic, or it's not, important to you. That's fine. It's all good. But for, the few people of you that do this, that is your thing, I really believe in sharing with you, because this is also part of my love as well. And this is one of the things that come with associated at, electromagnetics and all of this. I'm a technical person, and honest to God, I don't really care about much other conversation other than the technical stuff that I know how to do, quite honestly. I'm like anyone else. I may be, from way out there in some other lifetime, but here in this one, I'm like everyone else, and I only want to talk about the stuff that makes me happy, that I'm familiar with. And so I only want to band with those people. So Wages World, he's one of them people. Captain Tommy, whether he wants to be or not, he's getting to be one of those people, the technical people that needs to know this stuff. Content creators need to know this kind of stuff. Anyway, all right. So this is a rather long, windy, windy, and what the heck is it? Introduction. Thank you. But hell, it's my birthday. I don't give a fuck. So I'm gonna play some of this. This is a good mix. And then what I'm gonna do is come back and start reading the material, and I'll get into what I have here. So with that cheery note, onward and upward.
Dreams came true. Now I'm standing here right next to you. Made the right turn, knew the way to go. Not out here all alone. Together we're strong. We need to hold on to love. Don't you worry,
That's a good mix. I like that. I want to hear, well, specifically, I want Bradley to hear the kind of, they're not bongos. I think they're actually technically rototoms, but I want to sort of flick them there for whatever it's worth. Okay. All right. Onward, upward. Where are we? Okay. Looks like I have a voice. All right. Alrighty. We have, so this is our educational model from Tomsk. This is the spectrogram, and this is the amplitude. All right. Some of this is a review, and some of it is not. Solar activity can add excess. Where are we? Solar activity can add excess voltage into the atmosphere, forcing it down from the upper atmosphere to us. And I've mentioned this before, that the atmosphere, the ionosphere, acts like a sponge, an electron sponge, especially when the sun is most prevalent and the sun is most active, hitting us. There's a plasma that develops there between the lower regions and the vacuum of space, and so it acts as the upper waveguide for the Schumann resonances. So, but that sponge also can release a pent up charge based on other conditions, which will give you lightning, which is the primary cause of the Schumann resonance. Okay, but in times of solar outbursts, there can be a process of solar forcing of the upper atmosphere down to us. And so as a result of that, there's an excess of voltage in the atmosphere. And we talked about what that does to touch screens and how that can affect touch screens by completing the circuit, the capacitive circuit of the touchscreen. What would normally be your skin is replaced by the atmospheric electromagnetics. So these are things that we've talked about. Now, let me also introduce, at this point, my website. Okay. This is, hello. This is I have this set as the home page, home base, I call it. And these are a lot of different meter readings, I call sensor readings from all over the place. And these are very important meter detecting stations, meter stations around the world that give us all kinds of interesting information. All right. And that's up to and including space weather. And we have here spaceweathernews.com. And there's also Space Weather Live and spaceweather.spaceweather. What do I have? Space Weather Live, Space Weather News, and spaceweather.com. Okay, so there are three places where you potentially to go to get your space weather quick fix on. And so we've talked about this before. These are places that you can go, should go, and monitor the satellites around the Earth. This here, Wages has done the Emerald Spiral, the Enlil Spiral, not Emerald, Enlil. I call it Emerald, but it's not. Uh, and you see, because it's not just when I had always thought of it that it was the Emerald Spiral because it was green, but it's not. It's called the Enlil because that's a satellite that's looking at it. Okay. And Wages has talked about this before. My thing here isn't to give space weather updates. I don't want to step on anyone else's uh, show or anyone else's information. And there are people that know more about this and how to read those than I do. But I'm happy to discuss this because part of what I do is also meter reading of technical devices. So I'm happy to also discuss this as well as a side thing to the Schumann resonances because it's important. People have a lot of questions, and it's important to look into this. And I also, occasionally I'll look into this and check out what's happening. But it is not my primary thing, as it is in the case of like Wages World or suspicious observers and other people. It's important, so I put the information up there, but it is not. That's not the primary function of my my website. All right. So, in other words, I check out the data, and it's there for you to check. But I don't talk a lot about space weather and all that stuff because it's not my primary focus, and there are other people who talk more about that than I do. Don't want to step on their toes, although I don't think they would think it's stepping on their toes. It just gives me the graceful out to allow them to do it. All right, so enough of the rambling on. Oh, and I have the article on the coherence. I'm trying to remember Heart Math Institute. I think that's what it is. The article on the heart-to-heart communication with horses, right there on the. So a lot of these, these all play a factor. All of these, right? All of this somewhere in here play a factor. Different things depending on where you're on the globe, right? Some of this is VLF. And this is the seismic stations and all of this space weather. But depending on where you are, these are all factors involved in this. Sorry. So back to the article. Sorry about that. The excess voltage in the atmosphere causes havoc with our technology that we have. This creates technological problems for those who use wireless as well as domestic electronics, especially those that are not shielded. Domestic electronics that are not shielded, which is most of them. And I've talked about this frequently. I talk about this regularly about the ill effects from the unshielded domestic electronics. The networks still relying on copper conducting wire, will be subject to excess atmospherics. The grounding method is extremely important. So there's still a lot of copper wire that conducts power in overhead power lines, not in the ground. This is really important to know that back when there was the Carrington event, they did not have power lines like we do. Not just data, not just all of that other stuff, but just at its most simplest element. And the Carrington event was 1859, right? So, 100 years later, 1959, right? They call these things, once in a century events. All right, so we're now in 2009, 2019. 2022 is coming up. So as time goes on, it's getting close to the inevitability that something is going to happen. All right. Um, Back in 1859, all right, back to the topic. On 1859, the telegraphs were, carried, data, essentially. That was early, online communication with people. The telegraph wires conducted telephone and telegraph. So the telephone is you talking. It's got an amplifier built into the thing, and the telegraph is a blip, beep, 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 with Morse code. All right. So the same wire that conducted a low voltage signal, just it was single conductor telegraph wire in 1859. That was all they had. Those conducted an electric charge, excess atmospheric voltage, through them from telegraph terminal to telegraph terminal, and also telephones. And not many people had telephones. You got to remember that 1859, proportionately less telephones than there were telegraphs. Telephones were very expensive then, and only people that needed them had telephones. Most people went to telegraph. Just in 1859, most communication went through telegraph. Okay, let's just remember that. 150 plus years, 160 years, we have substantially increased our use of wires that are above ground. So it's roughly 163 years later, 160 plus years later, and we have society technologically has bounced beyond our ability to protect it from the natural world, if you will. Gravity, for one. My phone will break it. My phone will break if I drop it from 3 feet. Now I can get a case and all of that, and another technological thing, but there's an industry on that, and it's a very complicated discussion on this, and I don't want to get off topic on the fragility of technology in itself to defend against the natural world, like gravity, for example, or like being dropped in the water, okay, or extreme heat, and electromagnetic radiation, electromagnetic EMP, electromagnetic pulse, electromagnetic interference from radioactive sources that you might not have thought about. Radioactive iodine, thorium. No, there's okay. Other heavy metals. Okay, figure in there somewhere. All right. What else? Lead. Other stuff. My guides are kind of working with me as I'm saying this. How do I say this? Due to a lot of kind of dumping of stuff, which may be intended for other purposes, the power lines over us. Okay. Dutch has talked about the connection to the high voltage power lines and the earth, and there being oddball seismic things and signatures that have been detected. Just different things measured around high voltage power line. Okay. And so in 1859, during the Carrington event, to kind of let me realign this. There was no, there wasn't the same power infrastructure. There was not the same data infrastructure that we have now. So in the last even 75 to 80 years, we have created a much different ground potential because of a bunch of toxins and pollutants we've entered into the soil that would not have otherwise been conductive electrically, you know, electrochemically, electromagnetically through the soil. And so pollutions that we've sent through the soil change the ground potential around areas. And I'm This is a big area to even talk about, but the toxins and pollutants that have been introduced also include electrosmog. It's been 5G, other areas that I'm not going to talk about, but that have created, like runoff and waste dissolving into the earth that otherwise changes the ground potential of what is happening. This is part of what is, it seems like I'm off track and off topic, but this is part of what the discussion here about is of the changing of the electromagnetics of the planet relative to how humans are using it, and some of what is happening with the intermittent internet shutoff is not just as a result of the magnetic poles of the planet themselves shifting, okay, but the ground potential of the planet itself realigning itself due to toxins that have been introduced and the need to reclaim those. I don't know how to better put it. And that starts getting into a science and a technology beyond what I can discuss here. It's not that it's not relevant, but it's just beyond what I can explain, and it's sort of off topic here because I'm trying to narrow down my focus and not let myself get sidetracked. um, so again, this is a big discussion. This some of this is review, some of this is sort of new or brought about in a new way. And if you're new here, again, welcome. And this may be a more of a complicated discussion than would be for beginners. Okay, I recognize that. And I may be rambling a little bit. I recognize that. That's why I try not to go off the script, because I'll ramble. I recognize that. I'm trying not to ad lib it, because I'm gonna be in a swamp somewhere with the wheels on my car and no way to get back to the main road. So that's why I try not to ad lib from the script. But I get downloads sometimes when I do this, and I get information from my guides, and things are revealed to me to kind of talk about this and try not to get lost as you're talking about this with your peeps. But the quarantine event, it's important to understand the difference between here and now and then, in addition to the atmospheric electromagnetics, the addition of voltage in the atmosphere, what that does, not only to touch screens, but also to the unshielded grid of the copper conductors and of the power lines that are in the air. And I just humbly submit to you, if you're at a place where you can see power lines that are up in the air, I can be assured to you those are not shielded in any way, and those are subject to electromagnetic EMPs, electromagnetic pulse, and electromagnetic interference from the sun. And normally, I've said this before, normally the air, the naked air, just how it is, on a good weather, not stormy weather, but at rest, fair weather air is a fine enough electrical insulator between two naked wires. They have a voltage going through them, or even if they have an insulation around them and they're a high voltage, the naked air itself is enough of an insulator given a far enough distance. However, if the insulating material has a crack in it, okay, or there's ungrounded or unshielded places in the transmission lines, it'll arc. It'll find a way to break the gap. The spark is always looking for its point to jump across. If there's a far enough distance between the wires, you're not going to have that problem. But you can't run the power lines, a mile apart. They put them on one pole and run them, string them that way. You can't run separate poles. They don't do that. They have, separate poles. If you've seen, successive poles right next to each other, those are from different transmission stations. So they're not like the positive and the negative from the same station. These are like there's three phase from one station and then three phase from another station. So, I come from, in Connecticut, my hometown, we had power lines from the nuclear power station. So I know a little bit about how, there's a bunch of power lines, but they don't all do the same thing. They go to different places. There's substations and blah, 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 blah. There's all that. So these are the exposed wires in the sky are subject to electromagnetic interference, even though they're grounded. The wires, and even though they're tethered, even though they're grounded, the poles are grounded into the earth. They're metal poles. Okay. There is still they're insulated. They have a material, the copper, they're not exposed to the elements. They have an insulation around them, but that only works so far. It's not a shielding against an EM attack, or attack as it were, and I could say that as an EM pulse or from the sun. There's the electromagnetics from the sun that comes down adds added voltage into the air. And that added voltage between two power lines is like a bridge. It's like you brought those closer together. You've created a shorter gap between those, and the air starts to act as a conductor itself. When the voltage comes down from the upper atmosphere, it's a excess voltage in the atmosphere, like I said, and then you have conducting medium in the atmosphere. And so that's how a lot of the grounding becomes really important. And that's really super important, that you need to have a few grounding points in the system and not just depend on one, depending on how many wires and how many. I'm talking, I think, largely now about your home. If you're wiring your home to ground out, each subsystem needs to have its own ground, not just into the metal box itself, but out actually into the actual ground itself. I've talked about that, the difference between and potential between the circuit, the inner circuit of the house, and the ground itself. As I said, the magnetic poles of the planet are shifting, and as they do, the ground potential of it being a zero potential, a theoretical 0 volts of what is numerically speaking 0 volts for your device, your laptop, your telephone, television, your toaster, whatever it is, you need to have a reference voltage of 0 volts of the return of everything going to 0, and then from that the differential of 5 volts plus 5 volts, or what have you, plus 120 volts. But it's measured, the plus 120 is measured based from your reference point of 0 volts ground, and that is the theoretical ground of the earth itself. So as the magnetic poles shift, and this ground potential is now no longer a 0, but maybe a plus a few volts, or maybe minus a few volts, something has to work harder or work less to make up that difference. And things that are used to working at a certain efficiency that now are forced to work less are becoming overworked, because it has to work less and it doesn't know how to make up that difference internally to the mechanism inside it. And so that's one of the reasons that a lot of electrical devices are prone to fail as the magnetic poles shift, is it's not used to the difference of the ground voltage changing and shifting. It hasn't been designed into it outside of a certain parameter of operation. There's a throttle that keeps it moving within a lot of times there's a mechanism that keeps things operating within a certain range, but outside of that range, a lot of mechanical devices are designed to just shut off because it doesn't want to burn out either the pump or the whatever. The pump is the first thing that comes to my mind. But a lot of, if it's a mechanical device related to an electrical output, motors are one of the first things that come to my mind, that it'll just stop. There's a shut-off switch outside of a parameter, and that's where a lot of these conversions, either to oil to gas or whatever, hydro to electric, is that they're not designed to operate outside of that parameter. Okay, that's the best way I can put it without me now feeling like I'm kicking a dead mule, and I think I've explained that well enough. Now, if I haven't, please say, I have no idea what you're talking about, Verde. Please explain this in a different way, and I'll do my best to explain it in a different way that maybe we can work through exactly what I'm talking about. All right, but I'm generally speaking, what's happening with the shifting poles, because they're shifting faster and faster. It's not just like, oh yeah, they're gradually lazily meandering. Like, no, they're marching. They're freaking marching onward and upward. The magnetic poles are moving full tilt boogie onward and upward, not to be brought back until they hit their done point, and then they're probably going to bounce a little bit and then kick back and back. Sometimes it bounces back, right? It comes right back to where it was. That's a thing, but who knows how long that bouncing back process takes? And oh, good golly, I don't want to be here for that. So anyway, as the poles shift, the magnetic ground potential of the planet itself shifts. All right, I explained that ad nauseum. Electronic technology often does not function to its optimum for humans during the times of heavy exchange during these telluric currents. What on earth are you saying? All right. So at times of built-up atmospheric electronics, built-up atmospheric electromagnetics in the atmosphere, plus voltage that comes from, forcing down. We have connectivity issues. So there's a lot of Wi-Fi, a lot of wireless Everything is wireless. Yeah, you can't not, I can't, if I'm talking about associated atmospheric electromagnetics, I can't not talk about Wi-Fi, wireless, Bluetooth, and all of this stuff around us that otherwise gets ignored, dismissed, and factored out as being irrelevant by all the rest of everyone else. Wow, they're not Schumann resonances. Oh, just yeah, no, I'm not. That's not what our deal here is. That's not what I'm doing. That's not what we do. No, we discuss. We look at this. We look at all of this. We discuss it and we evaluate it. We analyze it. All of the atmospheric electromagnetics, including Wi-Fi, including citizens band radio, CB, including AM, FM, including microwave, including everything else under the sun. Schumann resonances are just that. However, there is associated atmospheric electromagnetics that is everything else floating around in the atmosphere that's giving you a headache or giving you vertigo or making you nauseous or causing your pineal to ring or what else other thingy mabob you got going on. That is associated atmospheric electromagnetics of the sort of the variety of which I'm referring. So as things are properly not grounded, or maybe they are properly technically grounded, but they're not taking it to whatever, it's just things aren't just oh good golly. At a certain point, proper grounding is not enough for the, how do I say this? Let me think about this for a second. Hold on. Okay. I think the best way to put it, at a certain point, simple grounding, proper grounding is not enough to overcome the severity of the differential between the Earth's actual currents and what is happening above ground. I think that's the best way to put it. That whether for the machinery itself, for all the electronics, all the electrics, as well as humans ourselves, the same thing applies. That at a certain point, you need to be grounded, but just grounding itself may not be enough as things start going really haywire and really crazy. You need to have a kind of higher understanding of what's happening, and that's sort of what my part in this is to give you the difference between the metaphysical mumbo jumbo and the higher order spiritual principles and mathematics that are needed to be able to navigate the rocky shoreline. And so these, knowing the difference of where the ringing, what the ringing in the air is coming from, whether it is an actual tinnitus or whether it's, the unshielded domestic electronics around you, or it may be something else that needs to be considered. And, all right, and a lot of this, I'm not the medical doctor. I don't do medical advice. However, if what the problem is that you have is related to the electromagnetics portion of the program, that I can take you through as if you are a component in that system. And I'm still not a fucking medical doctor. I like to be thought of as a witch doctor. I'm fine. Witch doctor? Yeah, I don't know. The doctor that's here now, willing to work for free? That's witch doctor. I don't have a doctorate's degree, but I do read a lot of doctorate level stuff. How about that? I'm not a doctor, but I will play one. If you ain't got anyone else, I'll play one. Anyway, all right. So, yeah, all right. So the global network, and there's all kinds of, there's all kinds of there's all kinds of constipation theory on the blowing up of transformers and the stuff and all of this. And I can't go into that. I won't go into that because I don't have any information on any of that anyway. But I will say that expect more of that, not from a lightning strike, probably not from a lightning strike, probably not from something like that. But as they have to keep kind of ramping things up to account for the differential in the earth ground, there a lot of these devices, elect, uh, electrical motors and devices of the grid, the old grid, the one we've had for the last 80 years, maybe 100 years, 80 years, 70 years, not that long. Half of the time, basically half of the time since the Carrington event, we've had the grid that we have now. Is something to think about. And in half of that time, less than half of that time, we have had data cables running along the same power poles, the same I'm going to call them electric poles, but the same power poles that I grew up with. I'm on the main street. There were the power poles that had lights on them, and they took the power. And there was telephone, but it was only within the last 25 years, that 20 years roughly, that there's been DSL, which is digital subscriber line, and then there's been almost half of that. There's been fiber optics that have replaced that. So the whole network is new relative to the time of Carrington, the Carrington event. The majority of that time, we haven't had a vast power structure and a vast data structure network. We've expanded past our ability to protect it from natural resources because it's just been convenient, and we've liked having unlimited growth without having to think about it. The consequences of the unshielded mainframe, the unshielded network, the unshielded power grid that we have. So when we get all sorts of atmospheric things that happen, that are beyond the discussion of what I can discuss, when we get atmospheric stuff that happens, then the overworked, overstressed power grid that's there starts just blowing up. There's not a better way to put it. It overloads, and then you have these tremendous explosions. Now, let me say this: that doesn't preclude other things causing that as well. Okay, right? I'm not going into, it's either this or that. Everything that I said does not take the place of, preclude from happening, or nor displace in any way any other theory that anyone has. So there are more of these transformer station transformers and transforming substations that are having these than you might believe. They're not making news, but there's a lot of them that are, when we talk about rolling blackouts, some of them they're able to replace and take care of, but there's a lot more to this going on than they want you to believe. So when we talk about, or when I talk about my explanation from, and I'll just say this, it's from, a pretty higher order kind of thinking to wrap your head around this stuff. So when I talk about my version of what's going on, and this is the technical side, this isn't Disney, this isn't, I'm not talking about Ascension Energy or Gamma Blast or any of the shit. I'm talking just what the data I have in front of me. So my version does not preclude anyone else's galactic alliance or whatever version of you have going on, right? I want you to know that. My version can sit very well with anyone else's version of the galactic forces or whatever that you might have going on, okay? I just like to say that officially for the record. I don't want to alienate my extra-dimensional galactic alliance friends, if I can help it. Okay, so as my disclaimer, I have said this before about Tomsk, that Tomsk State University, TSU, is a public institution. And I speak very highly of them. I've always been their champion when people talk ill about them and say that they're misrepresenting data or they're censoring it or manipulating or any of that. I always speak well on behalf of Tomsk, and I always take their side uh, because I feel that they have at least a certain amount of integrity, that they're not doing that with the data, especially when I am fairly certain that there's other factors that can be used to explain missing data, first and foremost. And secondly, any missing data itself does not of itself indicate that there's anything that they're manipulating or censoring. It's absurd to say that. And that's part of what this, you know, part of my drive when I do this and all of this is to stand on their behalf and at least give credence to their reputation, that they're not in this to do funny business to people, and they're here doing this as a public service, giving us the data as a public service because it's their charter and they're following through with what their charter says. I personally take an ill view of people who malign Tomsk without any kind of proof of it, and just based on their own circumstantial, personal evidence, which isn't evidence. They're coming into this with some silly narrative of censorship, and so I'm critical of that, because no one to this point has been able to give any substantial proof, verifiable proof, that anyone over there is manipulating or cooking data or any of that. And I personally don't want to have that floating around in my channel or what I say or within my circle, because I don't think that does service to the data itself. And I really truly believe if a person is going to look at Tomsk in that way without any kind of data, then I think it's really important that they you come clean with something, right? You can't just throw out that they're manipulating data without there being some proof. All right. So I always speak up on behalf of Tomsk because it's very important not to, it does a disservice to us, to the community, to accuse them of malfeasance when without anything substantial to back it up. Okay, so it basically said Tomsk is an educational institution which provides the information free to the public as a condition of the charter of their public institution. They didn't create the power outages, like any number of things can happen between where and when they report the information to it being received by you on the website, either Disclosure News or their server itself. Okay. And buffer errors do not indicate that Tomsk is manipulating or they're censoring data. If it's just taking, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, because there's a big spot at the end of this, and this is not Tomsk censoring data, right? It's important to understand this. There's a big block at the end of this, and as they're having, internet network problems, so too are the rest of everyone else. And so it's important to understand that Tomsk is not, simply because there is a blank space there at the end. It doesn't mean that the data is being censored or it's manipulating. There's frequently a blank space at the end of it where the data is buffering. That's what I explained, that the data is buffering. Okay. So I think it's time for some music. Let me see what we got. I think we got good music. Give it to you. Oh, yeah. All right. So I'm going to pause myself put the music on, and enjoy a hot coffee and perhaps a chocolate covered donut. Um, and where am I at? 20. All right. So, yeah, all right. So, and what I've been doing with these is playing like two songs worth, like the lap dance. If you ever going for a lap dance, you get two songs, you two song increments. It was like, it was $10 for, two songs, and then you get, $20, you get five songs. I'll throw in an extra if you tip them, whatever. So this is the two song, lap dance, two song coffee, I guess. What I did was I wrote down all the different parts to the mix, and so I have like a kind of guideline that I'm going by. Like, oh, all right, the next point where kind of the music changes, like all right, that's where kind of um, aim. I'll aim my talking to. And so that's sort of what I did. I think I had started saying this at the beginning of it, and I didn't get back to that. But that's sort of how I'm kind of scheduling this, as I'm looking at the different parts of where the music is. So I'm working on this video around the Aronmix here, the one that I'm auditioning. So the Lionsgate of last year. I think that's 88 Portal. All right. So on that cheery note, I'm gonna play some music. It's a good coffee break, and then I'll come back at whatever the point is. That seems like music is good. Then I'll get to the current observations, and then frequency, or I don't know, maybe I'll see where I am at the point I get done with the frequency. If it's too long, then I rambled on too long, then I'll leave the frequency thing for another time. But at least it's, all this stuff is written here. You can still read it. I do the videos because I like the live chat. I can leave the information up there. You can read it yourself. But this is fun doing this, and I explain more of it. And I'm also kind of, working through some of the stuff with you in detail. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense. And so sometimes that helps me as well. And so the live chats help as well to kind of reconfigure this. All right, so let's play the music. There's some music, like 10 minutes worth of music. Honor of Metal.
I keep dreaming about you, baby.
Darling, darling, darling. You are my very special lady. Okay. We will save that. That gets into a good from the 24:10 mark to the 33:33 mark. I put in the note let play. So there's a good mix coming up. So let's read a little bit. If you stick with me and you follow along, I will treat you with the next installment of this Aronmix, and you will be happy because it makes me happy. Um, and I gotta make sure to get Aaron on at least one recording and play it for you guys, so you get to meet Aaron. He needs your love and support. All right. So let's get through this, if we may. All right, focus run, recording. All right. Current observations. Amplitude features a spike at 14 hours local time. All right, so these are current observations. So I'm talking about this local spike here at 1400 hours local time on the 3rd of October with the synchronous burst among the 4 modes. Also seeing a synchronous spiking of quality in white and yellow modes. All right, so I talk about the 3rd, it's up to 45. Oh, please. Please, system processing. Okay. All right. So here we are. So there was at 1400 hours, 14 hours local time. Which is 2 in the afternoon. They had this burst, local time, 2 in the afternoon local time. They had this burst, synchronous burst of high quality voltage, which is, again, the voltage is the vertical conductivity channel. So in the middle of the day, we sort of expect to get sun coming at us. That's not that big of a deal. When I see a burst in the middle of the day, regardless of how high it is, I don't consider that a big burst, because we should theoretically get the pounding during the day. And again, the solar radiance is filtered through the ionosphere, right? So as the sun as the sun smashes the ionosphere and strengthens that creates the ceiling to the waveguide. That is what, when it's tight like that, creates a really strong series of resonant frequencies, which are separated by the 6.6. Right. So during the middle of the day, you'd expect to get something because the sun is beating down its most. So that's not that big of a deal, just for the record. Generally, it's a calm, stable day for amplitude. So the synchronous mode, you get a spike of white there, and the white mode A1 to go with Q1, and then you have the yellow, you get the same thing, the Q2 to go with the A2. That's something I wanted to point out. And then there's a small blip there in Q3, quality 3, to go with the A3 spike there as well. Generally, it's calm day for amplitude. This is the vertical conductivity channel. Again, it's additional voltage or surplus free floating electron content, as I say. Voltage, when you get these spikes, the voltage is local, and it stays for a relatively short time before it is converted into coherent waves or magnetism, which is conducted in the atmosphere or through the atmosphere, and it's measured in units of Teslas or nanoteslas. This affects the thinking and ability to form. All right, so the electric side affects the thinking and the ability to form thoughts in the brain, and the nervous functions are conducted through, nervous functions are conducted electrochemically through the nerve fibers. The pacemaker of the heart is affected by ambient electric side activity. So if you have a natural pacemaker working in your heart, you should be able to keep it regulated of yourself. However, ambient, like a lot of ambient voltage in the atmosphere, will cause a natural pacemaker to start feeling it. I think that's the best way to put it. And if you have a artificial pacemaker that's been installed, the electrical device, yes, this is something you would want to be aware of. And I don't have more information on those, so I can't tell you more about it, but I would suggest that it is something to pay attention to get more information on. Quality, so the Q here, we talk about quality, the Q, is the measurement of the degradation of amplitude into the coherent wave, thus traveling in a direction, so north, south, east, west. Amplitude degrades into quality, which is the horizontal travel of EMF waves coming from lightning. Lightning is the predominant cause of Schumann resonances. Quality, the magnetic side of what continues around the world to eventually form into Schumann resonances. These are subtle ringing. The Schumann resonances are subtle ringing within the cavity of the waveguide. And as we talked about, the ionosphere is the ceiling of the waveguide. This atmospheric humming is the product of two fundamental waves interfering with one another to create a third, more stable tone or resonance than the fundamentals which created it. Schumann resonances are a series of harmonics which are caused in this fashion. Fundamental EMF radiations emit into the atmosphere as voltage from lightning discharge, converting into magnetic side coherent waves, which resolve into the Schumann resonance, the Schumann series of atmospheric harmonics. The resonant frequency of 7.8 is the fundamental harmonic, or foundational, 7.8 is the foundational harmonic. It is always present. Schumann resonances are a series of harmonics. It is a group of resonant frequencies which are separated by 6.6 Hertz increments. The first one starts at 7.8 and then moves to 14.1, the others building from that one, the first foundational harmonic. This foundational harmonic is not going to be increasing in frequency. It dips a little bit, it rises a little bit, but it's like a string that you pull tight. And I've mentioned this before, I've said this before, that you see this frequency here, this line here, isn't going anywhere. It's not going to leave anywhere. And it's always present. If anything, it gets stronger. What you do have are these areas, this frequency here, 7.8, it's not going anywhere. It's staying intact at that horizontal band. You can see it. It gets a little bit thicker or thinner, but it doesn't deviate from that. It's not rising. It's not going away. The 7.8 is not going away. It's not going to be rising. What you have is other harmonics, higher upper harmonics that activate on top of the fundamental, foundational harmonic. It's important to understand. These are not taking the place of the foundational harmonic. It's like the basement. It's like the foundation of a house. You can't have a foundation of a house build up and say, oh, we're not going to have a foundation anymore. That's not how it works. Without the foundation, you don't have anything. And that's what 7.8 Hertz is the foundational frequency from which the others are built, or from which the others can assemble and accumulate. Okay. That's the word I'm looking for. Accumulate, maybe. All right. So this is the next part of this I've mentioned before. I had worked to the next part of this I deal with collective consciousness. All right. So I had originally worked to steer clear of collective consciousness at the beginning of this. However, it became obvious that I couldn't deal with I couldn't discuss Schumann resonances without also including somewhere in there discussion about collective consciousness and the rise of collective consciousness and what that means, and as well as the areas surrounding that as well. And that has been a kind of slippery slope of a difficult row to hoe, as they say, because of the lack of good information on that, the presence of misinformation on that, and a substantial lack of understanding what really collective consciousness is. I didn't want to deal with it, but at one point, I determined the best, I guess, baseline for understanding of that was morphic resonance and Rupert Sheldrake. So, not having a better ready-made set of discussions, videos, content. I allow Rupert Sheldrake to kind of have the inaugural discussion on collective consciousness. And so from that point forward, and that was actually, I think, the first one that I did 6 videos, and I think that was for Bradley, who had asked about collective consciousness. And I thought, this is probably a good time to discuss this because someone had actually specifically asked. So as with a lot of the things I've done in my videos and in my channel, I have done videos because people have asked and shown an interest in it. And it's been time. At that point, it shows me it's time to start talking about this subject and this discussion. And so when I have, up to this point, talked about collective consciousness, I've largely left that to Rupert Sheldrake to explain, the morphic resonance principles and how his scientific views on that. Because I don't have a better, more ready-made set of talks than him already. He's been doing that for years. He's he's my resident expert on that. However, we're now at a point where I need to discuss the collective consciousness itself relative to the Schumann resonances. So this is where the I'm at in this, whether I want to be or not, is the discussion of collective consciousness, not from the discussion of what that is. Rupert Sheldrake has already talked about that, but collective consciousness relative to Schumann resonance. That's a different matter itself than how I've already addressed this, I think. The definition of collective, in other words, the definition of collective consciousness has been provided. That itself has been addressed. What I'm working on is that topic, collective consciousness relative to what the Schumann resonances does and does not do, in addition to how that may be stumped by unshielded domestic electronics or other electromagnetic influences and interferences local to you. In comments, I think it's important to note, in comments with people, I field questions from people, I answer and address questions from people who ask specifically, I have something, I'm going through, a headache, a ringing, or whatever, is this related to electromagnetics? And I ask questions such as, are they doing construction? Have they recently started construction? near your house. All right, so it's not the Schumann resonances, but let me give you a direction to move in. So that's part of what my technical expertise here has wound up being, is to address these sort of questions of not necessarily what it is, but maybe what it's not. And I think sometimes that's a more fun thing to look at. That, well, I don't know what it is, but let's kind of check that item off of the list because of this, that, and the other thing. I think that doing that properly also serves a wonderful function to people in answering questions they have, specifically again of the electromagnetics. So there's so many electronic devices, meters, all this shit around us that it's a part of everyday life, whether it's a part of everyday life whether we want it to or not. And in many cases, out of convenience, we sort of want it to. And certainly there is way more of a presence of electromagnetic devices and electronics around us in our everyday life, here personally, with me, than there was 10 years ago. And even then, more so in the last 5 years, I think, or 6 years, than like ever before. So certainly, whether I want to or not, like this is one of the things, human conditions that we now have in society, that my guides are calling me to discuss and talk with people and have a dialogue about. And that's not just and I've said this before, it's not just Schumann resonances here. Wages World has said this, but there's a lot more to this than just Schumann resonances. I hear my phone is vibrating in the back. I have a message. Hopefully it's from one of my two loves, Jacqueline or Pamela. And it's Pamela's birthday today. Hi, Pamela. I hope you're having a wonderful birthday today. I think what I'm going to do before I start reading about the collective consciousness that I wrote about, I'm going to play like 5 minutes worth of music, enough to get some coffee, and just kind of wet my whistle, and let me shift gears, and that'll give us a chance to have a smoke or whatever. I'm at the 1 hour 51-minute mark, the 1:51, so it's time to take a drink. I don't drink coffee. I mean, I don't drink alcohol, so I'm left with coffee. All right, so on that cheery note, I'm going to have the Schumann big and large behind me, and I will see you in a little bit. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. DJ. Appreciate that. We will let you play in the background. Oh, hopefully it's not distracting you. No, hopefully not. All right. Okay. Looks like I have voice going. You know, there's a lot of, let me just say this. For those of you who are also doing the, you know, either OBS or doing a capture or want to do a YouTube channel. Oh, more technical wizardry requires more technical dedication to learning how this stuff properly works. And when I say that, I'm also including what doesn't work. It may be easier to find what doesn't work than what actually does work when you're working with these. And I'm a technical person. I have years of experience, and all of this new generation, every new generation of technical stuff requires a dedication to learning it. And some of it, and a lot of it, may not be based much on what the old stuff is. And there's a learning curve to all of this. And so as a technical person, I encourage you to not lose faith and not lose hope if you're having technical problems. And I could be talking specifically to Captain Tommy, but I know there's other people who may not be even as old as I am, who may be younger or significantly younger, who still are not having an easy time with the software and hardware and using OBS and all of this. I just, and I'll give you a offer myself. If you have questions, you can feel free to leave those in the comments. This is not just about the Schumann resonances. This particular video is not just about the Schumann resonances, but also associated atmospheric electromagnetics. In addition to, your OBS or your home studio or technical questions on video capture or audio video or stuff, even loosely related to electromagnetics. I'll even field those. It's my birthday. I will feel free to address questions that I want to address and that make me feel happy and that I have a personal knowledge and experience with. And that also is a good lead up to collective consciousness, because I do indeed have a friend of mine, couple friends that I'm going to be involving in my birthday bash bonanza, who I have a collective consciousness experience with them. We talk and communicate using our intuitive side, telepathy, intuition, rather than depending solely on electronics and electromagnetic radio transmissions of our wireless and all of that. I maintain to my friends that we're literally writing the book on this, and many of us who are engaging in this kind of cutting edge stuff, like what we're doing, are also writing the book on this. So I have a practical experience from my own understanding of what collective consciousness is, and I know it is not the entire bulk of humanity that we're talking about. Collective consciousness starts with a small group, a trusted group of folks we would call our tribe. Right? So unless you are able to resonate and attune with a person on their wavelength, one sort of misses the boat on this. And I think it's important to understand that and I'll keep this in personal, my personal language, I can't attune with someone I have not met. I can maybe with a name, maybe a face, but unless I know that person personally, I met them, I am not able to attune into their subconscious frequency easily. They don't know me. If that person doesn't know me, they don't have the ability to receive signals from me. And this is really super important as we understand the collective consciousness protocol moving forward, that it's not that people don't have that ability, it's that there is a set procedure and a set protocol in place for that, to start attuning with the people around you, immediately around you. Again, once again, we talk about local interferences and we talk about local influences. Something may not be an interference, but it may be an influence. Right? I think that's important to understand the difference between an interference and an influence. Right? A influence might as well be an interference, but they're not necessarily the same thing. So you have an influence on people around you, but it may not interfere with them if they don't tune back into you. And I think that's really important. There's what we send out, and then there's what we receive. There's two channels in this, and there's two directions that we have movement in. There's the vertical and then the horizontal. The vertical is the electric side of the voltage, excess voltage in the atmosphere, and the horizontal side is the magnetic side that comes from the heart. The speaking that comes from the head is the electric side, and the communication that comes from the heart is the magnetic side. So this is the two kind of polarities. This is the two fundamental stations, if you will, in collective consciousness, that it's not just that you send out waves or waves are sent out and we tune in with the waves. Not how it works. It's not a receptive only process. There's an interactive process with you and the people around you that you're looking to attune your consciousness with. And unless you know the frequency of their vibrations, their resonant frequency, you won't be able to tune into them. It's like a radio station that if you're not dialed into the right frequency, you're not going to be able to receive the correct broadcast from the other person. And you can have, it is possible to have a few people, like a married couple, soulmates, these kind of things, different people, twins, different types of relationships between people that you have, that you could tune into a group of people, like twins or brother, sister, if they're, but that's a limited type of sampling, as you were. Maybe you could have 8 kids altogether, and even then still free will gets in the way, and the division between the crack between the worlds, I think that's a great way to put that. That starts becoming more and more evident as you get further and further away from the personal interaction between those the octets, the 8 kids or whatever, So the collective consciousness, properly how it works, is a transceiving. It's sending and receiving back. You need to, if you're going to tune in with another person, you would send out signal, and you got to wait for it to be received from that other person in order to go forward. So that is why collective consciousness is not an automatic thing. It's not something that'll just magically happen with people, especially if you're not interested in doing this, if you're not predisposed to doing this, if you're not inclined to want to do this. If a person believes that this is automatic, that they don't have to do any work, that they're just the frequency is going to rise, the vibrations are just rising up, it's automatic. If that's the preconceived notion that people have coming into this, the mythical version, the Disney side version of that, if that's the notion that people have coming into this, I can't do anything, you couldn't, no one else could do anything with that. They're kind of stuck at that point, and then they're not able to grow any further because they're not understanding technically the process of how that works. And that is what I am here for. That's what I'm here to do, is to help work people through this technical process of how to attune with those around you who are ready to be tuned into and tuned in with. Collective consciousness is not something that happens automatically, because humans need to will it for themselves, for them, him, it, her, him, her, itself, need to will it for the self, for that person as an individual, in order for that to happen. You can't will this to happen for someone else. You can't will this or intend this to happen for someone else or to someone else, general. And you certainly couldn't intend this to happen for someone without their knowledge. You can't intend this to happen for someone in lieu of them doing it for themselves. This is what we have, and this is what a lot of the problem with this whole ascension thing and all of this mumbo jumbo is the understanding that you're not doing it for someone else. You can only do it for yourself and raise people up. You can't push someone else up from the bottom. It's not how that works. You can only raise people up by giving them hope, giving them inspiration, raising them up to the point where they are inspired to get up of themselves and to activate their own centers and their own energy channels. I've written about this before. I've mentioned this. I've talked about this. I've been talking about this, and at least in the last September, all of September, where we're talking about, you know, the difference in the two parts of the mind, where intuition comes from, what the heart center does, and all of this. I've discussed all of this, and some of it's somewhat esoteric and out there kind of stuff, but it's important for people to know this. It's important for me to talk about this, and it's important for you, for any of you who are here and subscribers and members. It's important for you to understand this as well, of what's happening and what we're going through. And so collective consciousness is not something that's automatic. It's not something you're just going to wake up one day and it's going to be turned on like a light switch. It's here. It's now. You have to use it now. You have to start understanding it now. Now, when it would seem to be difficult to use it, now that's when you got to use it. That's when it needs to be developed now. Otherwise, when you have when the human has the opportunity, if you haven't started, you're going to be left figuring out how to do it from the ground up. And I'm not going to be here then, right? So now is the time to do it. Now is when we're doing this, and I have my people, my few people that I do this with intentionally, intuitively, intellectually, and very reverently to source and to all of the benevolent powers on how to tune into others using this collective consciousness wave, which is really the code of the DNA itself doing a lot of the speaking for you. Part of what the secret of doing this is, of speaking, communicating to others on this sort of express, the collective consciousness express, is to allow it to seep into the feeling set of the sensory organs itself and resonate with another person and attune with their energy. It is difficult, if not impossible, for a newcomer or someone new to this to do this, to follow this process successfully with someone you have not met, with someone that you do not know anything about, that you can't think about, you don't have any previous experience with, some complete and total stranger. And if you've had the experience where you've been thinking of a person and they've just shown up, or you're thinking of someone and they call you, or you call someone out of the clear blue and they say to you, "Oh, I was just thinking of you," all of this is examples of collective consciousness at work, in action, And it is what I might dare call 5D living. If you've ever experienced a spontaneous meeting with someone who is otherwise thinking of you, they had you in their thoughts, they were thinking of you, and they said this to you, that is 5D living. Period. That's it. There isn't anything else other than that. There is not anything greater than the magic of meeting someone, of being at a time and a place where you can meet someone, talk to them, when they have called you forth into their life. That's magic. That is absolutely magical. And if you want to believe that there is no rhyme or reason, that that's completely circumstantial, that there isn't any great or anything to that, that's fine. That's on you. But I submit to you, there is either it's all meaningful, or it's all meaningless. And so when someone tells you, I was just thinking of you and I wanted to talk to you, if you don't find 100% meaning in that, you're dead. You're not a human. You're a robot. You're an android. You're a piece of grass, in my humble view. And I think even the grass and the ferns would be happier to see you and provide more meaning than that, than to say someone was thinking of you. They called you forth into their life. They're happy to see you at a time when you have magically the ability to talk to them for half an hour and you haven't seen them for a while. That is 5D living in 3D. Your linear timeline intersected with their linear timeline at a vector that allowed you both to be able to communicate with one another and spend some wonderful time with each other. All right, so let me read what I wrote about collective consciousness. All right, relative to the Schumann resonances. Collective consciousness is not that which is powering the Schumann resonances. I get a lot of haters, I get a lot of hate mail for suggesting that collective consciousness, as people are looking for it to happen, is going to take a lot more than the residual work of the Schumann resonances. So in order for, basically what I'm saying is that in order for the collective consciousness to actually occur, right, it's possible for this to happen now. You can do this now, right? It happens to people now. But you have to understand what's happening and how to kind of give into that magnetic wave of 5D for that to happen in your life. You can't wait until you're dead for this to happen. Quite honestly, you live in it now. But if you understand that that's part of the magic of the 5D living, is allowing the ebb and the flow of not being on linear time, not being on the calendar, but allowing things to flow and allowing things to appear as they're needed. If you can operate within that sphere, that bubble of existence, that is 5D living. The Schumann resonances are not automatically going to do for you what you cannot or will not do for yourself. They are not of themselves automatically imbuing collective consciousness to you. It's not what the radio waves are bringing you. That's not, you can't tune in your brain into the lowest frequencies and expect that you're going to have be able to connect with everyone through the medium of the Schumann resonance. I think that's the best way to put that. That's what I believe. That's what a lot of people are expecting. Like, that's what the Schumann resonances are. They're carrying is the automatic self-writing wave frequencies that are going to magically get people in tune with the rest of everyone. This is the best I understand the myth here. 7.8 hertz is one in a series of harmonics. This is not a small point. This is not an inconvenient fact that can be dismissed or mentally factored out. There is a physical principle of third density being packets. So you have the first density in space. Your first density would be linear, straight line. One way, straight line, another way. The second principle is an AC, like a wave, or a wheel, cyclical function. And then you have the third density would be packets or clusters. So when the resonances cluster up at 6.6 intervals, this is a principle enacted of third density. Third dimension is time, space, and intention. There is the linear DC function of first density. Then there is the cyclical function, the wave function of second density. Then there is the packet form of third density, where things cluster or want to accumulate into more complex forms. The series of harmonics is a clustering of resonant frequencies assembled in a morphographical structure. In full activation, the series of harmonics has a stabilizing effect on the human organism up to the range of approximately 46 hertz. Occasionally, there are glimpses of the 52 hertz resonance, but that's usually too sensitive to be detected. It's important to point out that the highest resonances are only available during the day, during the middle of the day when the ionosphere is most active. During nighttime hours, Schumann resonance activity is at its lowest point, generally speaking. Collective consciousness, being equal and uniform among everyone as we are all magically ascending as a group, is one more of those New Age myths that we are getting inundated by, deluged by, as we look to understand what's happening from the technical aspect and technological aspect. And we see that this is one of those things that's being invented as we go along. There's a lot I can say about what collective consciousness actually is, but this may not be the proper place for this. I've already discussed collective consciousness as a subject elsewhere. I did want to take some time to address what is most definitely is not, and it is relative to Schumann resonances. I will be developing more of this dialogue on this topic as we go along in future days. Thank you for being here. Much love. All right. And so this was, I just read the script. Follow along with the script. All right. So one of the things that we're talking about is the morphogenical structure of the Schumann resonances, where the humans are would potentially tune into the resonant frequency of the radio waves. Schumann resonance is the radio waves. So there is a morphographical quality to that changes a person when they're not there. All right, so it's important to understand most of the effects on a person happen in the mental aspect of this. So I'm looking for the somewhere is the study, I think it was Berkeley, I can't remember where it was, that did the study on the students and buried them underground, and the effects of the lack of Schumann resonances. Okay, keep in mind that the lack of Schumann resonances when they do these experiments also includes the lack of sunlight. And it's really important that sunlight is a very important component to the Schumann resonances. There's a filter of the ionosphere, and that's another important thing to point out, that during the day, the Schumann resonances are the strongest. because the ionosphere is the most complex. Important to remember, and that's why the series gets developed in the middle of the day and not necessarily at night. All right, so this is a good stopping point. I need to take a bathroom break. It's 2 hours, 21 minutes into it. My God, this is going on forever. So I'm going to just continue. Who knows how long this will be? I'm going to continue reading on about frequency, and then after that, I will be done. But in the meantime, I'm going to play some music, and that'll allow me to take a bathroom break, just like DJ at the real studio. I'm going to play an album side, and that'll allow me to take a bathroom break and a smoke, whatever. So let's see what we got here.
wash the dishes, wake you up with 1,000 kisses. I'll take out the trash, won't remind you of your past. I can love you, I can love you. You deserve much more better than this. Ooh, darling, keep doing you dirty. I can love you better. Keep doing you dirty. You deserve all the fine things in life, baby. I can love you better. You deserve much more better than this. Darling, darling, I can love you much better. I can love you much better. I'll show you, I'll show you. You deserve better than this. You deserve much more better than this. Oh, darling, darling, I can love you much better. I can love you, I can love you. I'll show you, I'll show you. You deserve better than this. You deserve better than this. Darling, darling, I can love you much better. I can love you much better. I'll show you, I'll show you. You deserve better than this. You deserve much more better than this. Oh, darling, darling, I can love you much better. I can love you, I can love you. I'll show you, I'll show you. You deserve better than this. You deserve better than this.
Okay, about ready to go. Onward and up. All right, so I had said we're gonna play some music. Well, I took a coffee break and I didn't hit the pause button, so a lot of music played and it wasn't recording, so I just randomly put it back. Did the right thing and put it randomly. I don't know. So maybe it played whatever it played. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, this is a long video. Part of it. There's a lot of moving parts to getting these videos to work. It's like it seems simple enough to pull you in. Oh, it's easy to use. Yeah, bullshit. Yeah, it's easy to use, but one person has to watch the controls while there's someone else doing the being the actor. You know, being the center of the action. You know, like, I mean, I can technically, I know how this works, but I usually, I'm not the one in the spotlight. There's usually someone else doing that. I don't need to, you know, I don't need to know how it works and also be the star. I'm the guy that knows how it works, and there's someone else who's the star. So that's part of what is, you know, there's always that kind of divide in the arts between the technology of how to get it to actually work and the, you know, the being the artist, being the creator. You know, there's a lot to it. And a lot of times artists have to be technicians as well, and technicians need to be artists as well. All right, so onward and upward. We're at 2 hours 30 minutes. Let's get through this. So I've put this before. We're at frequency. I'm talking about frequency. I have discussed this thing before. I posted this with the definitions. I'm working more and more with the definitions of the words, and frequency is one of these words that gets misused. It's now like a phrase. It's not just a word, it's a phrase, because it has so much life to it outside of its normal definition, its technical definition. So I entitled this Frequency and a bunch of other words that are confused for it. Frequency. Technically, the phrase is used to designate peak events over time. This is cycles per second, such as a wave propagating along a horizontal fashion. If you think of waves in the ocean, that is a frequency. The peak, you're measuring the peak. Peak to peak is frequency. However, this is one of the most misleading terms ever relative to Schumann resonances, atmospheric electromagnetics, and the alleged awakening that we're all supposed to be going through. Frequency is cycles per second, which relates to a repetitious function like to a wave. A straight line vector moving in a straight line is not a frequency. That is a velocity. Amplitude is not a frequency, but a height or intensity or the power. Technically, it's the power. Quality measurement as a frequency is the measurement of magnetics, which are coherent waves, measured in distance from peak to peak. Okay. Frequency is a term with a broad, often confusing meaning these days. Below is a list of objects in motion words confused for frequency. All right, the first one, most important, is the amplitude is a vertical frequency or intensity. It is a power measured as decibels of electron volts. Spikes relative to the spectrogram are scaled vectors based upon the limitations of the scope itself. So I've shown you before amplitude, which is A. This is amplitude, and those are the upright vertical spikes. The vertical conductivity channel is what they call that. So the amplitude of the spikes, the pencils, right? That is not a frequency. That is not a frequency number. That's a decibel. That's a power rating. That's an intensity. That is the voltage of the electric atmospheric electromagnetics. Right? Resonant frequency is the difference between two fundamental or originating waves called wave fronts. These fundamentals run into each other repeatedly. They beat each other up, and this causes interference patterns, which are called standing waves. The standing waves are quasi-stationary. They oscillate in place in the atmosphere. All right, and so I've called those interference waves. They're standing waves. They have different names for them, but it's a resonance, and resonance is the difference. Essentially, it's the difference between two fundamental or originating frequency waves. Harmonics are a series of resonances which are split off from the original primary resonance, or it's built upon it. It's foundated. I don't know if that's an actual word, but it's foundational to, or it's foundational of, the first harmonic. Number one harmonic. which are split off from the original primary resonance into a harmonic set of evenly spaced resonant frequency variants. In this case, it is a differential frequency, or the separation between the resonance harmonics of 6.6 hertz. Again, this is a differential in the series, not one harmonic from another. This is these are, rather intense, weighty, complex ideas for a person to wrap their head around. And it may not be easy for someone just to come in, if you're new to this, and start understanding that not all frequency is the same. Just because, you hear the word frequency doesn't mean that people, using the word frequency are referring to the same thing. And this is really important to understand the definition of the words relative to what it is in motion. And I use the phrase objects in motion because there are different ways to describe objects in motion depending on what the thing in motion is and from where your initial starting point of measurement is, where your arbitrary logical starting point begins. Standard measurement of radio waves is the distance in kilometers over time. So when we look at the Schumann resonances and we look at the F here, the F, all right? Hold on. So when we're looking at the F right here, this is F3 and this is F4, okay? We have, that is the frequency that I'm talking about here. Okay, so really quick, F, this is F3, and this is F1, all right. And so that F number, that relates to frequency. And this is the standard way of measurement of radio waves is with, standard radio waves is measured in the meter, kilometer, centimeter, band, what have you, millimeter, depending on the average distance between the peaks, the wave to wave. And so that is one of the understandings in radio waves of what we're measuring. That's the standard. That's always been the way it's been from the beginning. Is a measurement on the meter scale, somewhere on there. The radio wave is the measurement of frequency is peak to peak. So I'm going to address that before I move forward into the more of the material. I know I'm almost done, but I want to address that very issue because when we talk about the Tomsk, the two frequencies, we're looking at two different things. When we're looking at the four panels here, okay. Keep in mind, the spectrogram is analyzing, it's giving you a three-dimensional image of something that's otherwise invisible. So it's, what's the word? It's kind of, well, it's analyzing and it's plotting. It's one of the words they use. It's a plot. It's like a structure, if you will. They're creating a three-dimensional construct of something that's invisible based on the dependencies of amplitude, quality, and the frequency, which is in kilometers, the dependencies below it. The frequency that they're showing you here, this is the harmonic resonance. This is a constructed image. It's an analysis, a constructed analysis. It's a structure. It's a construct. It is an artificial coloring of the data that's given you below. The actual data, the raw data, is analyzed, fed into the spectrum analyzer, and giving you a spectrogram. All right. So the frequency here, this is the resonant harmonic frequency in the atmosphere. This is actually a real thing, but it's otherwise invisible to us. And the coloration here is not of visible light coloration. So when people tell you, oh, this is incoming white light, that is not what this means. That is not what this is telling you. It's not giving you the spectrum of the actual visual representation of the light. This is a mechanical breaking down based on the modes that they're giving you and the filtering system and all of this of the totality of the wave. All right. So the frequency here that they're giving you in the spectrogram is the resonant harmonic hum of the atmosphere, and that is not the same frequency as the bottom one here, which is measured in kilometers. This was a common mistake to make early on, and that I didn't understand until it was explained to me. Remember your training of radio waves? That's what this is. This is technically like it's a, like a cop there with a radar gun measuring your speed. That's sort of what they're doing here. It's they're measuring the speed of the waves, but it's the frequency. It's technically the frequency of the fundamental waves. And as I've said before, the spectrogram is also a function of time. The white is what comes first, the yellow comes next, the red comes after that, and the green is the part of the wave that comes last. And so that's part of what the coloring on the spectrogram is telling you, is it's giving you a time signature based on the coloration. It's trying to give you, the spectrogram is trying to give you a 3D representation of radio waves, which are otherwise invisible. So you have to allow a time function in there to be your third axis in the graph. This is basically a plotted two-dimensional graph that they're trying to bring out into a third dimension for you, and that's what the spectrogram is theoretically. Is it's giving you based on color and shadow, and some colors, darker colors appear further away, and all of this visual optical illusion stuff. With that, they're trying to give you a third dimensional perspective on it of what's essentially invisible. So that's how you have to look at this, is it's not actually the spectrogram, this here is not actually reading the sky. It's not actually hooked up to the sky itself. That is what the antennas do. They detect it, and then they send it to the spectrogram to analyze it for you to get a three-dimensional image of what you otherwise couldn't see three-dimensionally. Right. So this frequency here that they're showing you here is not the same. Like, this is the mediated version, and this is what the actual raw data is telling you of the different parts of the wave. What's coming in first, the white is what's coming in first, the yellow is what's coming in behind that, the red is what's behind that, and the green, the red then to green is behind that. And so if you see the frequency waves, you'll see that this one here, the top one, this is 806, this is kilometers, and then you have, or in fact, I'm pretty sure it's 8,000. Right. So this one here is 14,000. Again, pretty sure it's 1,000. It says 14, but it's not telling you if it's 1,000 or if it's, it's 14 kilometers. I'm pretty sure it's 14,000 kilometers. And then you have the red one is in the 20 range, and then you have here's the 25. The green is in the 25 range, and when it's at the 25, it's it tops out at like 31, but 25 is pretty significant for the green. And especially when you start getting readings of like not 25 here, it's not 25. This is relatively weaker magnetics here, yet still you see the signature here when it's strong, and this is the diurnal variation at the night. All right, and so it's another frequency that we talk about as the diurnal variations. I didn't put it here on my list, but that is one more of those frequencies we talk about, that not just the difference between the day and the night, but also seasonally as we move through the year. that s- that parts of the year have greater recorded intensity for the Schumann resonances, in addition to the larger 22-year solar sunspot cycle that is also a frequency that we discuss as well. And so let me also interject into here something as well, that the Mayans had a number of calendars. Whatever your view of the Mayans are, if you're adverse to them, you can just shut this off right now. You don't have to, we don't have to talk about it anymore. You know, I don't deify them, but they did have a lot of advanced timekeeping, record keeping systems, calendars. They had a number of calendars actually based on following of the movements of the various planets. So they had a Venus calendar, they had a long count calendar, the short count, and then they had the extra long, galactic length calendar. And so the one that ended in 2012 is the Great Cycle calendar, the 26,000 year cycle. That's the one that ended. There's other calendars that are still going on, that still last, but the one that the Mayan calendar ended at 2012, well, that's what, or the dating that they're coming up with of 2012, December 21st, 2012, whatever. So that that approximate date in that year, that's when that count ended. I believe that's the long count calendar of the 26,000 years. We also keep in mind that there is an even greater cycle of, I think it's the 26 million. There's a million year, 26 million year, I think, 35 million year cycle as well. I forget what the how many millions, but there's a number of million year cycle as well. That calendar is also, for what it's worth, coming to an end as well. So there's a number of calendars that have actually, subsequently are coming up for renewal and review. The calendar doesn't end. It renews, but there's another cycle that starts, and it's all very complicated and more than I'm going to get into. But I thought that little tidbit was relevant to the Mayan calendar, was relevant to where we're at, because this is also, I have said this on my channel, and I'm not afraid to admit this, that because this is not my theory, I'm not the one making this up, so I'm happy to just repeat someone else's theory. But we've talked about the ending of the Kala Yuga, and that year, that's the great year that they put on our the equivalent on the Gregorian calendar is the year 2025. So I look at that. That's my goal of when this, the Kali Yuga is officially ended, and the Aquarian age, the New Age. What I don't use that phrase at all. I never use the New Age. But the Aquarian age will officially begin in 2025, and that, not too coincidentally, not too randomly, coincides with the end of this current president's reign, the rule, whatever you want to call it, the auspices of Chief Mr. Sleepy Joe will be ending. Not only at a time America as a country will have been done, will have had its time, because Pluto, that's a 250-year cycle. That's the Pluto return, is somewhere around that time as well. It's coming up. All these, eventually the accountant is going to get paid. Eventually the grand accounting gets evened out, leveled out, gets reset. There's a lot of stuff. Reset is happening in a way that people do not fully understand, that's going to really benefit some people and then really, really not benefit other people. It depends on which side of things that you're on at that point. basically the beginning of 2025. That's, you know, it's either the ending of 2025 or the beginning of 2025. Not sure, but you get the point. It's wrapping up soon, quickly, soonly, very, very soonly. Things are wrapping up. And my point here is just to let people know, time, the grand scale. We're talking about frequency. We're talking about time, the great scale, the grand scales. Okay, great scale. All right, 2 hours, 51 minutes, 25134. 25134. They're all there, just in a different order. All right. The electric scale of a person is separated by 10 hertz. Or actually, that's not the electric scale per se. Those are your energy centers. Your primary chakra, the root is at 10, then the sacral, the orange, is at 20, and then the next one up, the yellow, the solar plex, is at 30. Then the next one up, the green, that's your heart, is at 40. And then the next one up, your throat, is blue, that's at 50. And then the next one up at your pineal is indigo, that's at 60. And then you have the next one up is a crown, that's the violet, the ultraviolet, violet to ultraviolet, and that is at 70 hertz. Okay, so these are magnetic frequencies because they go from me to you. They interpenetrate on the magnetic, the horizontal. So they're not the electric side, they're the magnetic side. However, as they work properly, the energy portals work between you and me. So there are different, depending on where a person's stuck in their development, is their time signature. So if they're stuck in fear, they're moving at a low frequency, very low frequency of 10. Everything gets funneled through fear in that 10, the red, the 10 hertz horizontal. They may be okay and not have problems with shame, guilt, grief, lies, illusion, and ego. These are the steps, the emotional doorways of the frequency, the doorways that people have to go through in order to move on to the next series, the next step, the next plateau. So unless you've gone through these emotional doorways, unless you have this is part of another frequency set that I haven't talked about here, but it gets close to sympathetic vibrations. Right? I have talked about the coherence between brain heart action, between the brain organ and the heart organ. I've talked about mind brain coherence between the brain organ and the brain organ as an administrator that's separate from, electrically separate from, in addition to the brain mind as a sensory organ, getting those two to work together in coherence, in addition to the brain mind coherence with the heart and the breathing function, right? These are all important resonant grouping clusters of harmonics patterns that we hold within us, that we can tune into, tune out of, interconnect with others, build in coherence with ourself and our higher self and the upper higher self and all of this stuff. It is more than just the frequency basis of the heart itself as the fundamental baseline of frequency of a person, because as everyone, the ascensionists are quick to point out about the brain frequency, the brain wave coherence, right? I regularly talk about heart organ as the regulator of collective consciousness. I regularly talk about the heart organ as the center of the emotional body of the person, that without development of the heart organ, interdimensionally between us, interdimensionally means without, the space isn't an issue. We don't have to be in the same room. So that's just at its very simplest element when I say interdimensionally between us, meaning that I don't have to be looking at you, you don't have to be present in the same room with me. We can do this remotely. So, and I lost track of where I was. But the portals, these energy centers, allow us to send messages and energy to each other through the quantum field, but there are multiple energy frequency signatures that we have to deal with within our own internal structure. And so that's where, like all this, is where we look at and we get into the mind, brain, heart, breathing coherence. And we're not looking at my individual brain frequency, of my thoughts, or of humanity as a whole. Because on a technical level, it's my understanding that as frequency increases and as frequency increases, the bandwidth narrows and it becomes more directional. And I don't see how, in any way, the brain wave function is different from this, especially knowing the fact that as thinking gets more and more directed, more and more focused, it starts generating more frequency in the brain as you get more and more focused and attentive on an object as a center of attraction, center of attention. The brain starts going into a higher frequency. And so that's a wonderful thing for the human brain and human consciousness to understand and to have. I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is, but that's a wonderful thing for it to be part of that process, that the increased frequency increases the focus, and and higher frequency narrows the beam and you focus in, and I think that's a great thing. That's wonderful. That's not the problem. What I'm suggesting is that as the frequency increases and the focus narrows, this is not what a higher frequency brain wave function is not the precursor to collective consciousness, nor is it a keystone to intuitive understanding, one from another person, from me to you. As I said before, way back in the beginning of this video, that the collective consciousness depends on me tuning into 3 hours. Yay! Right at the 3 hour mark. Collective consciousness depends on me understanding someone, getting to know someone personally, and tuning into their frequency specifically, or a few selected people specifically that I know that also know me. So I have mentioned before, and I'll say this, I believe this is relevant here. I hope it's relevant here now. I had replied to Mark Abrams' channel on YouTube talking about the purpose of the chakras, and one of the things of that is they're interdimensional portals that allow us to burrow through quantum space to connect with each other remotely. This is a gift from Source. This is a gift from God, that is part of our birthright as people is that allows us to burrow through the quantum space, and use the code of our genetics intuitively in a way that is original to our bodies, and not is one of technological advancement, of a relatively new technological advancement that we don't know how to use. You know, the laptops and software and JavaScript and the communicators and all these, you know, the handheld devices, they're serve a purpose, they're convenient, I get them, but they take the place of our original instruction set, our original skill set of the intuitive side of the DNA, of our genetics, of the proteins and all the stuff that we share with the planet, that actually makes it a lot easier to communicate with people than through language. And so this is one of the sympathetic vibrations of being in coherence with each other, with a small group of people, successively larger, but people have to want to be in coherence with the original group. They have to want to cohere with the larger group. They can't ask for special treatment and be, oh, can you come over to my frequency, when they're a whack job and they are not in coherence with themselves. You know, we get in coherence as a group when we are in coherence with the mind, brain, breathing, heart rate, resonance, when that is all together and all at one. So the periodicity, one of the frequency words, the heart rate function, synchronization of the body centers, those states of brain activity, it's called coherence, as we talked about. And sympathetic vibrations is the best way of looking at this phenomena. Essentially, it's where one base resonance was moved to meet another stronger base resonance. So that is essentially what we're talking about, that the true collective consciousness on the tribe level of, may say, for example, my tribe would be the terrific 10 of the advanced students that get where we are at, who are able to stay on focus with the material. The terrific 10 who are able to follow along with what I'm saying, and if they don't get it, they go back and read and reread. You know, all of the material here that I'm basing this on is right here, and the stuff that I'm kind of ad-libbing, though, they will go back and listen to that again. That's an important thing to understand, is that what makes the terrific 10 that I talk about, my disciples, my asciples, ASC, you know, they're ascending, they're not descending, they're ascending, my ass. No jokes on that, please. No bad humor on that, or I will just dismiss you. We run a clean ship here, please, people. So that is, you know, the periodicity of your internals, all this. Like, so, all right. So I think I've described all this and where we're at. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this. I mean, at 3 hours, 3 minutes, I'm pretty sure we've hit all the notes we need to in the symphony. This was, I think it was really important to have this discussion of frequency and what we talked about, because it was, I think it's naturally led into that. I may do another, or I may kind of, and I promise to do this, and I don't always do them. In fact, I a lot of times promise and don't do it, but I may go in there and just take out the frequency part of it, just have that as video itself, and have that not as a premiere, but have that as a separate video, just one of just frequency. I think I like that, you know, And that way you don't have to go through 2 hours before you get to the part of frequency. Because not everyone has 3 hours plus to watch. I appreciate people that do, but like I know everyone doesn't. And I really don't have time to do the research and then write everything out and then make a 3 hour video and then watch it, make sure it's all okay, the time it takes to post it, and then have to be there for the premiere. So this 3 hour video is really half of my week. It's a 20-hour commitment. I don't have that either, so I can understand you not having 3 hours. I don't have a bunch of 3 hours to watch this video all over again. But I do, I got to. It's part of the gig. So just remember that for each, I'm not kidding. For every, hour that of finished video, there's another 4 hours of work behind it. And hey, I can let the machine upload it by itself and just periodically check on it, but there can be problems. And I still got to check on it. I check on it periodically. I'm going to be making something to eat, and then I'm going to post this. And so it's probably going to be later on, like this afternoon, when I finally can get this uploaded online. So on that cheery note, I'm at the end of the video, and it's time to end this with music. This is this is a good place to stop, I think. And I appreciate, all the people who come here for the live stream. And I've been making some longer videos in place of shorter ones that I'm trying to get ready for my birthday bash, and so I kind of make videos where I can. I had wanted this one to be a little shorter, but there's a lot to talk about, so I've been winding up doing 2 hour videos or 3 hour videos because there's a lot going on, and I put them in there. And quite honestly, if I'm already doing a video, I might as well just keep talking and just get it on and finish that, rather than two shorter videos. It would seem, oh, two shorter videos would take less time than one longer, but no, it doesn't. No, trust me on that. The 3 hour video is, once I'm already talking, I'm already here. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever. All right. So I'm going to close this and end it with music. And so I'm putting the donations bin out there, and I'm the donations hat out there. Please help me, support me so I can, there's some preparation. I don't want to give away too much because it's really going to be a big surprise. But there is some preparation involved in the birthday bonanza, and I've had a lot of help from Jacqueline and Pamela, up to this point. But there's still some more stuff that I need to do to prepare for this. And I thank you all, everyone, for your love and support up to this point. Everyone's been wonderful. Y'all are wonderful. And I, just have been absolutely speechless with what people have been willing to offer. There's a lot of love and support from you guys. And I wouldn't be able to, if I wasn't doing this, I wouldn't be able to, be here doing anything else, really. Like I said, I'm not a DJ on a commercial radio station, and even if I was, I couldn't read my own material. I wouldn't be happy with that. I wouldn't be happy anywhere else other than doing this. And so you all being here, you supporting me, helps me to, every dollar you give me as a donation that you give from your heart keeps me from having to work for a job that I dislike, intensely dislike. And this here channel is my lifeboat. Captain Tommy has his lifeboat and does what he does. And I have my lifeboat with the disciples of you that are diligently interested in learning about the Shimmer resonances, associated atmospheric electromagnetics. This is where I need to be. And I've had jobs where I made a good decent amount of money as a technician, and I don't want to work for a company or a corporation. I want to work for you guys, you folks. I don't monetize my channel. I don't want commercials on there. Whatever commercials I get are from the music, coming from whatever the music I play, so I hope that's cool. But to this point, I don't think any of the music has monetized any of my stuff. But even if it is, it's cool. I don't ask for money on my channel because I want that to just be, hosting. And as a result, I don't have a lot of subscribers. I'm fine with that. The 2,000 I have now, if everyone was in one room, I couldn't talk to 2,700 people. Just very simple. I would not be able to talk to 2,700 people. I would not be able to talk to 275 people in one sitting. I couldn't. So I have a good amount of subscribers that if I could just reach all of you individually, that would be a wonderful experience. Okay. But in lieu of that, I have this as it's a model that I'm using. And I explain to people that you don't have to monetize through YouTube. You can monetize through PayPal. They do that. There's a little fee they hit me with. That's fine. But it is what it is. So just like I said, with your good graces, you're going to help me celebrate and do this very wonderful journey that we're going to do to some friends who are going to help me celebrate in the most wonderful way. And when I talk about a vacation, that I've needed a vacation for a number of years, I think this is what I've been talking about. So I'm going to kind of exit on out of here with some music. And this is one of the ones I had marked. The name of this is Give Me Hope. You all give me hope. I just want you to know that. Thank you. Every single one of you, you give me hope.
distance needing joy, and how we long for some truth now. We all agree we can take it, but still your words confusing. When will it end? Please don't fake. Give me hope. Give me hope. Give me hope for the world around me. Give me hope. Give me hope. Give me hope for the world. Give me hope. Give me hope. Give me hope. Give me hope for the world around me. Give me hope. Give me hope. Give me hope for the world. And how we long for some truth now. We all agree we can take it. Don't need to fight to change it, 'cause we all want the same. Everybody here around me knows change has gotta come, change has gotta come. Everybody here around me knows change has gotta come, change has gotta come. Everybody here around me knows change has gotta come, change has gotta come. Everybody here around me knows change has gotta come, change has gotta come. Give me hope for my world. Give me hope, give me hope. Give me hope for my world, yeah. Give me hope for the world. Give me hope. Give me hope for the world around me. For the world. Give me hope. Give me hope. Give me hope. As long as we got love, we are never alone. As long as we got love, we are never alone. As long as we got love, we are never alone. When I was down, you pulled me up. When I was thirsty, you filled my cup. I know that I'm strong and can stand on my own. But oh, what a joy it is to know that I never have to do this alone. Never alone. Never alone. Never alone. Never alone. People come and people go. The seasons they will change. I know we'll be alright, 'cause our love will remain. Love will remain. Our love will remain. As long as we got love, never alone. 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 Now we all know that life can get lonely sometimes. As long as we got love, we are never alone. Love will remain. Love will remain. Never alone. Never alone.
Okay. No, never alone. Only love remains. All right, it's time. It's definitely time. We're at 3 hours 24 minutes, and it's time. It's a shift. I've done my shift. All right. And you know, I'm just kind of stalling now to let people. You know, I'm pretty much going to do this as a premiere, so to let people kind of wrap up on the chat. You know, we're going to close down the shop now. But I have the chat function on my, you know, the members chat function on my website. And you know, I'm otherwise accessible. And you know, I'm always available for the Patreon people. I have had a lot of interesting, great conversations with some people over there. You know, if you're interested, if you want to get my time and are interested in some really technical explanations on stuff, definitely come over to Patreon and support me on Patreon. You know, it's a pain in the ass, their system of, you know, whatever, their administrative system, whatever. But, you know, it's definitely a venue for people who want my time, and you have complicated questions. I take the time for people over there. And you know, it doesn't take much to be a Patreon supporter, but believe me, you know, every bit that you can do for me helps, you know, to get me out of an undesirable situation into one that is going to help me continue to do the Schumann resonances. So thank you all for your support, love, and kindness up to this point, and I appreciate everything that everyone's done. Thank you for the good, kind words, and I appreciate everyone for being here. And so, on that cheery note, it is officially time to leave, and we're going to kind of exit out with some music and a couple minutes just to wrap it up, and we're out of here. Thank you all. Let's go. Good night, everyone. Sleep tight.